Hi everyone, how's it going? In today's video, we're gonna be doing a bit of a community video where I'll be answering some of your questions related to data science careers, learning, job searching, and some personal stuff. Data science is obviously a huge field, and of course I don't know everything, but I'll try my best to answer your questions based on my personal experience being a data science consultant in the past 5-6 years. All of the questions will be listed in the timeline down below, so feel free to jump around to your favorite questions. Without further ado, let's dive right in. So first question, what is the great source to stay current on data analytics, and also what books do you suggest? Very good question, and thanks for the kind words. For me personally, I like to stay current by reading newsletters and listening to podcasts. There's some very high quality newsletters on machine learning, data science, and AI. I enjoy reading the Batch newsletter. It's a weekly newsletter created by Andrew Ng. He's a very inspirational character in the field, and all of the trendy things that you hear on the news about AI, machine learning will be most likely discussed in his newsletter. They have a lot of thoughtful stuff, and it's one of the newsletters that I really enjoy reading. Another great source of information is Medium. Medium is a blogging platform, and a lot of data science writers go there to write about a lot of different things in data science, data analytics, and sharing a lot of tools and cool projects that they are doing. So I'd highly recommend. And in general, data science also belongs to the tech field, so I also follow some of the tech newsletters, for example, the Box of Amazing that comes with a lot of social topics and trendy tech stuff. As for data science podcasts, I listen to a few weekly podcasts that have been around for a while now, such as Data Skeptic and Super Data Science, where you could learn a lot of new things from important people in data science. There's also a podcast called Talk Python to Me if you're really into staying up to date about new Python libraries or functionalities or cool projects that you could do with Python. I'll link them all down below in the description. About the books for data analytics, I just made a video recently about book recommendation for data science beginners, so feel free to check it out here. Alright, next question. Can you talk about the best opportunities to get a scholarship for data science training, internship, both paid and free? For sure, it'll help a lot of people aside from me. I guess it depends on the country or city where you live, what's available and what's considered best. I think there are a few directions that might be worth looking into. The first thing is local companies and organizations. You can probably find opportunities in the job portals in your country, also at your school if you're a student. I found my first job this way, and the nice thing is that you might have some local connection with people who could help you, like friends or cousins, and maybe in my case it was my thesis supervisor. In the Netherlands, I know at least some non-profit organizations that collect and use data for a good cause, such as Plastic Soup Foundation. They have data about plastic trash that people collect all over the country, so it's a data science opportunity that you can collaborate with them. I think you can also find similar things in your country or city as well. And secondly, on the internet, there are also a lot of initiatives and open source collaborative projects. Like the other day, I was researching for a new dataset to work with, and I found Open Food Facts, which is a very cool initiative about building a huge food database. On their website, they said that there's a lot of work to be done, and including data sciencey machine learning stuff. So things like these are really great opportunities, and there are also many other websites for volunteer opportunities in data science, and you can definitely look at that as well. So unfortunately, I don't have a concrete list of things for you to apply, but I do believe in serendipity, and that once you start Googling and have some thoughts about what you are interested in and start conversations with people, you might find some really interesting things. Like last time when I went back to Vietnam, I was sitting next to an Indonesian girl on the airplane, and we ended up making friends. She told me she got a fellowship, and I think it's called Equity Initiative, and they provide some kind of fellowship for people coming from China or Southeast Asia to talk about health and social issues. So I thought it was so cool, and maybe there's some data science projects there to be done as well. So I believe good opportunities are not given, but are to be found. And if there's absolutely nothing to be found, you gotta engineer it for yourself. So if you really want it, be ready to write your own history and take an unconventional approach to get your foot in the door. Alright, next question. Please tell us the do's and don'ts while searching for jobs as a data analyst. Also guide us about making project portfolio to enhance our resume. I've definitely been there as a data analyst fresher and had no idea what I should and shouldn't do. But looking back, I think one of the things that I did right was to keep an eye on the low-hanging fruit and utilize the relationships that I had at the time. I wouldn't be too picky about my first job as long as it gives me a head start. For example, when I was doing my master's program in economics and I was taking one of the last modules in the program, and it was such a stressful period for me because of all the uncertainty with finding jobs, and I was completely broke as an international student. So one day after class, a professor mentioned that he was working on a project and needed some people to help with some literature research and maybe some data analysis as well. At first I was like, who am I to help him with this? I was just a mediocre student having no skills. But anyhow, I just decided to come up to him and ask, can I help you with this project? So in the end, that little unpaid project turned out to be an internship and then turned to be a data analyst job at a small company here in Amsterdam. So you never know what kind of things you might get when you start paying attention and listen to the opportunities that are around you. Another do is definitely to make sure that you have the basic skills, and for example SQL, Python or R, and knowing how to use some BI software such as Tableau or Power BI, and then you can start building your own portfolio project and you can really do anything that interests you. If you don't know how, just Google it and use a project someone else built as a base. So much is being shared for free online, so what's left is just some patience and a willing to learn kind of mindset. Once you have some portfolio projects like that, make sure that you put them together in one place. The easiest way is to put the code and the necessary links on a GitHub profile and write a nice README for people to read about your projects. You could even create a portfolio website if you really want to be fancy. I made a video about this on my channel. And lastly, don't forget to show your work. A lot of you have made the Python dashboard project based on an earlier video on my channel. I saw some of you got very good reaction on LinkedIn and I'm super proud, and yes, that's definitely the way to go. And about the don'ts when searching for jobs, I think a big don't would be to wait until you are ready to apply for a job. I think we never quite feel really ready for any job. We all have that imposter feeling and the feeling that you have to learn everything in order to start applying. That is definitely not an effective way of looking for a job because you never know what kind of things you're gonna be doing in that job. So what I want to say is don't be too critical about yourself. Once you have a few quality projects in your portfolio and you can show the skills and the tools that you are capable of using, I think that's already enough for a recruiter or employer to look at it, and together with your background, they will evaluate if you are the right candidate. It's either yes or no. If yes, that's great, and if it's no, you just happily move on. Alright, next question. Do you think PhD in mathematics or statistics can be an advantage for data science career? If yes, for which area of data science exactly? Yes, absolutely. If you have a PhD in mathematics or statistics, I think you've hit the jackpot because data science is really about statistics and mathematics and some computer science and programming. So I think you definitely have a lot of advantage, especially in data science research, machine learning research, and in those areas, you'll be the people who really look into the underlying mathematics of a machine learning algorithm and maybe even develop new algorithms and optimization techniques or create a new AI systems for companies and organizations. For example, a new trendy thing that's going on right now is the AI system that can create long-form videos from text. So cool stuff like that. Also, explainable AI, AI ethics, and AI safety are also really important topics that need a lot of people with strong, solid background in mathematics and statistics. Experts believe that the risk of an existential catastrophe caused by an artificial intelligence within the next 100 years is around 10%. That's crazily high. And there are not enough people tackling these topics. So if you want to save the world and are interested in learning about this, I've put a link to the 80,000 hours blog in the description. Okay, next question. Most advice on landing an entry-level data analyst job is focused on the US market. Seeing that you are based in the Netherlands, any advice on doing so specifically in the Netherlands? Very good question. I've never lived in the US, so I have no idea what might be the difference there. But from my experience, I think because the Netherlands is such a small country compared to the US or Canada or even any country in Asia, I think things here work a little bit differently. I feel like they rely a little bit more on personal connection, and many of my colleagues at my work got recruited from personal connection. And companies also often rely a lot on specialized recruiters, especially for tech or data science related jobs. And also back when I was a student, I also attended a few career fairs where companies just like gather together and host a whole day to introduce about their companies. So I think just showing up and talking to people and getting to know the companies really help. For example, when you find a company you like and you want to apply to their positions, and on the cover letter you can say, I talked to your colleague at a career fair and I really like the work that you do and I feel like I could be a very good fit because blah blah blah. Yeah, you could be more specific of course, and I do that all the time and I got really good results from that strategy. And another thing I should note is that a lot of companies here are Dutch companies, so although Dutch people speak English very well, sometimes they still prefer you to know some Dutch to show at least you are familiar with the culture, with the language, and you can take on the job if the projects require you to speak Dutch. So even if you are not speaking Dutch right now, just mentioning in the resume or during the interview that you're taking courses and you are proactively learning Dutch, that would tremendously help, and I guarantee that they would have a much better impression of you as a potential employee. People here also very much value honesty, directness, and life outside of work. So if you have any personal hobbies or cool stuff you do in your free time, definitely bring it up. Okay, next question. How can we better approach problems that come up in projects, the kind that often requires a prior foundation or experience that we may not have the time? Yeah, this happens to me all the time. So I say a useful thing to do is to proactively research that problem. If you can't find any information online, you need to reach out and seek help from other people. If the problem is technical, then get help from a technical person. And if the problem is more domain related, then you need to find a domain expert. Ask questions, a lot of questions, but also try to be specific, and sometimes you might need to zoom out a little bit from the problem to put it in the right perspective. And sometimes we might make the wrong assumptions and the real problem is actually something else. Next question. What is your strategy for better understanding data science and applying its concept to business problems? Well, it's hard to come up with a simple answer for this because the application part is always a bit messy and difficult to distill. I think the starting point shouldn't be understanding data science, but it really should be understanding the business domain and identify the potential issues that data could help verify or solve. If you look at the whole data analytics maturity curve, the first thing and the most simple thing that people usually do is to do some kind of descriptive analysis. So look at what is going on right now. Look at the mean, the max, median values to better understand what's going on and what is their magnitude. And then you move on to the diagnostic analysis, which is to answer the question of why did something happen. So you might look at some kind of correlations or some kind of distribution pattern and see what might be the contributing factors that cause the phenomenon that you are seeing. Then you go to predictive analysis, and this is where machine learning comes in and all these fancy models and more intelligent stuff that you do to, from historical data, find a model that best fits the data. And finally, we have the prescriptive analysis, which is to answer the question of how can we make it happen, basically to try to optimize your decisions to make sure that your prediction is correct. And so business problems really boil down to these few main questions, and all around these questions there's of course a bunch of other things that you need to consider. For example, data quality or the explainability of the model, or how feasible it is to implement this in practice. So this is how you can start seeing the connection and maybe come up with some data solutions for the business problem. Alright, next question. Is it a plus to study about cloud for getting a data science role? I know there are some services focused on data, but I don't hear a lot about these topics. I think it really depends on what kind of companies that you are applying for or want to work for. For big tech companies or large banks or e-commerce companies or social media companies who have a lot of data to work with and heavily actually utilizing data for their business, then I think knowing about cloud platforms would really help. And for example, knowing about Google Cloud Platform or AWS or Microsoft Azure and know how to use the services on these platforms would be really useful. I think it's probably more relevant if you're doing data engineering or machine learning ops or machine learning engineer. But if you're curious about cloud computing and all these different cloud services, by all means, go for it. Alright, next question. As an aspirant data analyst from South Asia, what are opportunities to work as a remote worker? I'm talking about remote work because currently in my country here, there's no opportunity to work as a data analyst. So after the pandemic, I saw there are much more opportunities to work remotely. On LinkedIn, for example, you might have seen a bunch of new job roles that are 100% remote. So I think there are definitely opportunities out there. I think to be a remote worker, you rely much more on online communication. Also, in the application process, I think you probably need to show more of your stuff online. For example, have a nice portfolio website or a nice GitHub profile where you have some interesting projects presented. I guess that's what I would brush up on if I want to apply as a remote worker. And there might also be some interesting freelancing opportunities for data analysts if you go on Upwork or other online freelancing platforms. I believe that you can find something if you have already some previous freelancing experience. Maybe just do something for your friends or maybe a family member just to have something to show and some rating on your profile. That's what I would do. Next question. Microsoft yesterday announced that its partnership with OpenAI would lead to more no-code or low-code enterprising by 2027. How do you think it will affect aspiring data scientists and analysts that are looking to dive into Python or R? Well, I think there's a few ways to look at that. If we only look at machine writing code to create something simple as maybe a game or a website or a program or even a machine learning model that does a specific thing, if we are really only doing just that as humans, then machine will sooner or later take over. And it already is. However, I think our work as data scientist or data analyst is much more complex than that, and it involves a lot of decision making. If machine is there to help, I think it will be more in the sense that it enhances and speed up our work. I think machine is very efficient at coming up with possible options, and we can think of it as draft work or throwaway work that humans do in the creation process. So a data scientist or a website designer or an artist would benefit from those throwaway machine learning models or possible designs for her concept, but I think the final selection and fine-tuning and monitoring would still take a lot of human judgment. And in data science, we need to have so much understanding of the nuances of the business and also human behaviors. We also consider things like ethics and fairness and sustainability, and I think these skills are still very tricky to model and teach to a machine. So all in all, I see it quite positively, and I think it shouldn't be something that deter you from learning to code and master R or Python or other coding languages, because in the future we need to monitor and evaluate and be in control of what machine creates for us, so we'd better know our stuff very well. Next question. Please explain us if any experienced developer moved to data science or machine learning, which path is good for him. I think if you have experience in software development, my guess is machine learning ops or machine learning engineer would potentially be something that utilizes the skills that you already have. You probably already know a bunch of different programming languages, or also have knowledge in the infrastructure of the whole thing, including the front end, the back end, and how everything works together to create a useful system that works in the real world. So in my humble opinion, and please take it with a grain of salt, it will be probably a bit more clever way to go about this. For the machine learning research path or hardcore modeling data scientist path, you may need more math and statistics background. You definitely can learn them, but I guess it will take a bit more time. Next question. How can an aspiring data scientist go from using machine learning techniques in a sort of self-contained Jupyter notebook world to actually having the skills to start putting these techniques to use in the real world at a firm, etc.? I think data scientists don't necessarily have to be the person who put models in production, because in a more mature team or organization, you have different people who specialize in different things. and they're machine learning engineers who put models into production and integrate the model into the infrastructure of the business. Even for data pipeline to create different features for your model, it's also taken care of by data engineers in the production setting. So yeah, as a data scientist, I think if we could create very good models in Jupyter notebooks and know what we are doing and how that impacts the business, that's already our job. But if you're curious about how models are implemented in the real world, a good step might be to learn more about, for example, cloud solutions such as AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud Platform, and getting to know Docker concept, learn how to write production quality code, and also unit testing, and basically a bunch of concepts related to software development. Okay, next question. Which programming languages we need to learn fully for data analytics or data scientist job? I would recommend Python, SQL, and R. Those are the three main programming languages that you would use. I'd highly recommend to learn the ins and outs of these three different languages. If your time is limited, I think Python and SQL should be quite sufficient. The next question is, what is your advice for absolute beginners in data science and how they can track their path? Because data science is a very vast field and it's easy to lose path. I think everyone can relate to this. We are all fickle, fragile human beings when it comes to focusing and sticking to something for a long period of time. What I would recommend is to create a roadmap for yourself for all the skills that you need to learn and accompanying materials that you want to go through. For example, some video courses or books or other materials online that you can find. And for each of these items that you want to learn, put a certain deadline on your calendar. For example, finish this video lecture or chapter by Tuesday so that you have a hard deadline that you work towards. For me, if I want to learn anything, I would set a very tight deadline for myself, and I would really laser focus on learning that thing, because I think the more time you give yourself, the more chance it would get to the bottom of your priority list and you get distracted by all other things in life getting in the way. There's always something else more urgent than this. And another benefit of micro goal setting is that it would prevent you from focusing on the mountain of things that you need to learn, but more on the specific thing that you need to learn right now, today and tomorrow to meet your goal. And when you're done, you move on to the next. Just like a lot of you ask me how I could work full-time and make YouTube videos and study at the same time. Well, actually, that whole seemingly big chunk of work is actually just one step at a time. So for example, today I spent the whole Saturday to make this video, and then I move on to do some work or some study. So yeah, I just work on one thing at a time and try to finish it as quickly as possible. I think these are really just tactics. The core thing is that you really set your mind to do this thing because you know it's important for your future. So I think it's important to make it absolutely clear for yourself that it's the number one priority for your career. There's no time to fickle. Just like Doc Brown says in the classic movie Back to the Future, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. And I totally agree. Alright, next question. How to transition from a role of business analyst to a data analyst or data scientist? I'm a first-year MBA student in business analysis. I think it's totally possible to transition to data analyst or data scientist from there. I think having business analyst experience gives you the advantage of knowing the business very well, and that would certainly help you become a better analyst or data scientist in the future. You might need to learn a bit more statistics and coding, for example, Python or R. And for data scientist role, you might need to know a bit more math so that you understand the fancy modeling techniques for pattern recognition or predictive analysis, etc. If you want to have a roadmap, you can check out some of my other videos here about the courses and the books that you could take. Okay, next question is, are you planning to become a full-time YouTuber in the future? I think this question is from Sven from Coding is Fun. It's a fantastic coding channel, by the way. Well, it did cross my mind. I'm still thinking about this because I still enjoy my work. I enjoy the social aspect of having a job and just go to the office and hang out with colleagues and having a team to work towards something hopefully great together. I have really amazing smart colleagues, and I also learn a ton of valuable skills along the way. And also having a job title also makes you look a bit more legit and people can trust you and what you have to say. But at a large company, at some point you might also feel like you're a cog in a machine, and I'm still not yet sure if climbing the corporate ladder is something right for me to pursue. YouTube, on the other hand, is fun. I get to be as silly as I can, and I still yet to realize the full vision of the channel, which is to make really well-informed, creative and beautiful videos for data science education education, because I believe learning is most effective when it comes from inspiration and the engagement of emotions and the sense of purpose. I know these visions would take a lot of time and effort from my side, and with a demanding job, it's sometimes not possible to create content at the quality and the speed that I like it to be. So unless I don't sleep and look like a zombie, I'll definitely need help from a team to do this. So yeah, right now I don't have a concrete timeline to go full-time for YouTube, but perhaps I'll have a better idea in a year or two. Okay, next question is, how do we prepare for data scientist or machine learning engineer interviews? Honestly, I haven't been to a whole lot of data science interviews because I've been sticking to my current job for a while now, but I think it all boils down to a few important things. The first one is having a clear and very convincing story of yourself. Basically, the tell me about yourself question. Be very confident that you can deliver it smoothly. A good start of the conversation always helps for a smoother interview. Secondly, also practice to talk about your portfolio projects, maybe 1 or 2 favorite projects that you are absolutely proud of. Focus on how you can describe this project in an interesting way and also show your relevant skills and experience. And thirdly, if you get to a technical interview, you would definitely need to really brush up on the basic knowledge and the technical aspect of your work. For example, in one of my data scientist interviews, I got asked, can you tell me about the advantages and disadvantages of XGBoost versus light GBM? Or what would you do if a neural network model gets stuck in the local minimum, or tricky stuff like that. Last but not least, don't forget to learn about the business domain of the company, knowing how their business model works, how they make money, and how data science fits into that business model. You can read the annual reports or white papers if you can find any of them, and you should also prepare some good questions for the interviewers. Asking questions shows that you care and you are interested, and also then you don't have to answer too many questions. So it's a great strategy. Okay, next question. Data science versus software development. Which one is better in 2022, 2023? I think these two fields are pretty different, and they also probably suit different types of people. I think data science lends itself to a little bit more exploratory kind of mindset, while software development has more deterministic mindset, where you make sure that a piece of software works properly according to the predefined technical specifications. I think in terms of job prospects, both of them are doing very well if you look at the market demand and the salary levels. I'm not sure what is better. Looking from my own perspective, I would try to think about what I like to do better and what is more aligned with my personality and the kind of thing that I like to do. Sometimes you choose jobs, but jobs also choose you. So I wouldn't worry too much about what is marginally better or what other people might think is better. Next question is, what is the best way to move from a third world country to first world country for data science opportunities? Should one apply for a master's program or try to get a data science job? I can really relate to this question because 7 years ago, I moved from Vietnam to the Netherlands to take a master's program in economics. From what I've experienced, I think it's easier to get a master's program or any kind of study program to go abroad than to apply for jobs directly from your own country. Because companies in any country, they would first look for people who already have some experience with their culture, with their economy, with their education system. So usually I think being a student in that country really makes your profile look a little bit more convincing. However, if you already have a lot of experience working in data science in your own country, then you might stand a quite good chance of finding a job in a developed country, especially if it's a very specialized role. I think you could just try both and see how it goes. For all of us, there are life-shaping events and decisions that we had to make to get to where we are right now. And for me, looking back, moving to the Netherlands, moving abroad has been one of those key decisions. Otherwise, living in Vietnam, I would probably have a family with 2 kids right now, and I'd be too busy to start making YouTube videos. Life would have been unimaginably different for me. I'm going off a huge tangent here, but definitely I'm all for changing the environments and trying to seize the opportunity abroad when you see it. Next question, what is the roadmap for someone looking to learn data visualization? I'll first start with learning the basics, and the book, for example, Storytelling with Data, could be a great start. knowing what charts to use for what purpose and the principles to present them in the best possible way. And then you could start learning Tableau or Power BI for charting and dashboarding. I think Tableau is usually a bit more flexible and faster than Power BI, but still a lot of companies are using Power BI because it's cheaper and it integrates very well with Excel and Microsoft software. So it's up to you what you want to learn. For more advanced visualization, when learning Python or R, you definitely get to learn some visualization packages like Matplotlib or Seaborn or Bokeh in Python or ggplot2 in R. And if you're really into creative web-based visualization, then learning JavaScript libraries such as d3.js is the next step, but it's probably not very practical in most common projects. Okay, next question. What are the research areas in data science? How to identify research problems in data science? What types of research are there in doing education like a master's or PhD in data science? There are a couple of different areas in data science, and it might depend on how you define the areas. So we could define research areas and problems based on the areas of application. So for example, healthcare or finance or banking or transportation or marketing, etc. Another way to define research areas is to look at different types of algorithms. For example, in machine learning, there's a bunch of different kinds of machine learning models and algorithms. And if we work with different data structures, maybe you work with graph, then there's a whole research area around graph algorithms. Or if you work with text data, then we have NLP, and for image data we have computer vision or image processing. Another way of defining research area is to look at the whole data science pipeline, and you can say interesting research areas could also be, for example, data visualization or model explainability or model fairness. Do we understand why a certain decision was made? So there's a couple of different ways to identify problems and research areas in data science. Next question. I'm just a beginner in data analytics and don't have a degree. Although I have completed Google Data Analytics certificate course, what should I do to land my first data analyst job? I searched job on LinkedIn and Indeed, but most of the time they ask for experience and sometimes a degree. Well, actually, Luke Barus just a week ago made a whole video on this topic, how to get a data analyst job without a degree, where he interviewed a few people who has done this. So he touched upon a lot of different things, from portfolio project to the strategy when you are doing interviews with employers, and also how to get through the automatic CV screening if you don't have a degree. So make sure to check out his video on this. I would also totally rely on my portfolio projects and reach out to a bunch of people and let them know my skills and that I'm looking for jobs, and also ask them to spread the word. And I would even email HR departments of small companies and some specialized recruiter in data science to promote myself and maybe try to make some kind of connection with them. So there's certainly a lot of different things you could do even if you don't have a degree. So yeah, we've reached the end of this Q&A, and I hope that some of these answers were helpful to you and hopefully give you some ideas or clear out some doubts you might have. And finally, thank you so much for more than 60,000 subscribers so far. Thank you for watching and have a great day. Bye bye.